still talking about this. Let's see if I can just do my video real quick on this. Hey, what up, everyone? Sam, chilling in the building. Literally chilling because it is freezing outside. For guys and girls on the Midwest, you know what time it is right now. I was just watching CNN. Actually, I had CNN on my television for the past couple of days, which I don't really watch TV that much. Certain shows I watch, but I just cut on CNN yesterday morning, and I was able to watch the debate between Chris Cuomo. He's a CNN journalist on his Good Day America show. And he had Steve King on this. Steve King is a Republican congressman, far-right Republican, in the state of Iowa. And he said culture and demographics are our destiny. And he said keeping up with those American values will help America while Western civilization to flourish even further. And those values are being lost due to immigrants, in so many words. And he said that's basically what he meant by we'll be forced to take care of other people's babies, immigrants. All right. So, I agree with a lot of stuff he said. I don't see why black folks are even getting on these CNN panels and discussing or debating with Republicans about it. You know, like, I have no idea why the fuck he doing it. Because those two fighters, those two people who were sitting up there debating, one is a German American, which is Steve King, and Chris Cuomo is a Jewish American. And they both benefit from the status quo. They both receive those privileges from the status quo that we have to lose our soul basically to have. You know? I mean, sure, if they wanted to, they can go and learn their native heritage, their native language, if they don't already know it. If it's not helping them to assimilate into American culture, because that was another thing he said. He said that a lot of people, they refuse to assimilate into American culture. So I'm hoping he meant the immigrants. You know, I guess he meant black people by the different looking black people that are still American, because we damn sure not immigrants. But the views that he has on immigrants, I kind of share those same views, and it's only because black folks still haven't learned to get their shit together, and when immigrants come, it's like they automatically use black folks as the stepping stool, i.e. the corner stores and the black community. So, and yeah, he's right. He said that a lot of second and third and fourth generation immigrants, they are here and they refuse to assimilate. They're here in enclaves, is what he said. But I mean, he's right. He's right. There's some of these third generation kids who have never, ever gone back to their native land. They've never been to Ghana. They've never been to the Philippines. They've never been to Cambodia. They've never been to Puerto Rico. But they speak their fucking language here. You walk up and down the aisles, you hear it. You hear the Somalians speaking their native tongue. You go on and on and on about this. And then you have Chris Cuomo again. Well, you know, America is a melting pot. It's a melting pot. Well, like I said, like, this is something that has nothing to do with black folks. When I listen to that shit, I'm like, okay, yeah, you right. Race can be identified by culture. And as I stated in my other videos, that's the biggest problem. Our culture. And that can easily be changed. Culture can easily be changed. You can't change the race, but you can damn sure change the culture. And I think he contradicted himself, which I agree on a lot of things he said, but I really think that he contradicted himself as far as the emulation shit, because a lot of these immigrants, though they do speak their language, their native tongue, they speak their language, and you know, they may have their own ceremonies, their own parades, different things like that, but for the most part, these people do assimilate. You go to the banks, you go to a lot of white establishments, different restaurants, the white guys are pulling all of the Arab women and the Asian women. You get those women because they have assimilated themselves into American culture. But when they go home, they might speak their Khmer or their Espanol. All right? Yeah, when you go to a football game or a basketball game, you see what standard America looks like. White folks, black folks. Depending on where you are, if you're in Arizona, you might see a sprinkle of Mexican folks here and there. versus a place like Montana where you may not see too many Mexican people, but you may see a few more Indians than you may see Asians in those areas. In like Idaho, Montana, and Dakota, you see less black folks there, but you might see another race that may add on to the demographics of that particular place. So I don't see why black folks is getting on these panels now. They're still making this shit a big issue about what this man has said. I guess it's because he's supported by David Duke, you know. And maybe I agree with these guys because I am a black nationalist. But the one thing I do not agree with them is, you know, like, if we want to get down to that argument about black folks going back to Africa and all of that shit, hey, we could stop that shit right now. That's how I feel about that one, because out of all of those people, we're not immigrants. We cannot go back to Senegal and go back to Ghana and feel comfortable because we don't speak the language. Hell, we don't even know if we're from those environments. Maybe some of us do. Maybe some of us have taken those blood tests and have done so, but I don't know. You know? I don't know. Only thing I know is that my last name is Johnson due to some fucked up circumstances. And ever since I was 17, I've always wrote my name different just in case I have any kids, or just in case I wanted to change my name legally. I can have my name still spelled Johnson, but it's actually written a different way. It still reads out as Johnson, but you just spell it a different way is what I meant to say. So that way I can have something that can identify my family lineage on and on and on from generation to generations, because this is how other people think. This is how other races of people think. You know, even though I was born out of wedlock and have my grandfather's last name, I still tend to take and go my own way. And I can't take my father's last name because I only knew him for 3 years. You see? So, and it's just pragmatic thinking. And they were speaking the language of dominance. Steve King was speaking the language of power. You know, in order to stay dominant, you have to keep other races out. That's why I don't like immigrants for the most part coming over and running running businesses in the black community. I don't like it. You know? And then you hear these stories with these ghetto crackheads standing in front of the corner store and they're mad because the Arab man kicked them out. I hate that shit. There should be a group of black men who run that store. And it's every fucking neighborhood you go to. And they assimilate with American standards. And part of the assimilation is stepping over black folks. You know, when you come here, there's a step like, okay, well, show us you can fuck over black folks. Oh, yeah, we can fuck over black folks. And then you're in. You know, we don't get those same privileges. We're not in those bubbles. We fight in the fight, but the privileges are given to other races of people before it's given to us. You know? That's why I'm pissed off of watching this damn panel. Because a lot of Asians, they don't look at politicians. They don't look at the Democrats or the Republicans and say, well, this is who I'm going to side with. You cannot identify Asians with a particular party. They go with whoever the hell is going to benefit them. And that's why they have their Chinatowns. And that's why they have their communities set up. And I mean, it's everywhere you go. That's why when you look at certain communities and you look at the corner, there's a fucking pole with a sign on it that says, we will buy houses. Because if they buy enough houses in these neighborhoods, they can grow and build businesses just like the Somalians have been doing in Columbus, Ohio. I mean, it's real. Yes, indeed, race. He said race could be identified by culture, big time. But a lot of immigrants have the same culture to come here and to rebuild, you know, to build their own societies, to get their money and get, you know, their own education, and then they're working through steps. So, you know, those family values that he spoke about, those German values, those Jewish values, those Irish values, Italian values, Scottish values, Greek values. You know? We have what? African American values? What is our African American values? What is our culture? What? Hip hop culture, you know, civil rights movement, AME Baptist Church. You know, we got a lot of fucking shit to do. Got a lot of cleaning up to do. And we had family values. We had them. Those family values that we had was power. You know, but I just hope that, because I didn't hear him mention, I didn't hear either one of them mention black folks. They just mentioned like Irish American, Greek American. No group of people should be higher than the other, but they all mentioned white folks when they said this. So I guess what Steve King meant was the different looking Americans that are still American is what he meant by black folks. But, you know, going back to those two, at the end of the day, they all have the same views when it comes to dominance. When it comes down to their group winning over the next group, they have the same fucking ideology. The only difference is they may disagree on abortion. That's it. And that's what I saw on that panel. Chris Cuomo is fucking pro-choice, and Steve King is pro-life. That's all I saw. You know, it's time for a fucking revolution, black folks, man. Yeah, and I guess that's not going against the status, or I guess that's not going for the status quo. I guess they feel like, you know, the hip-hop culture or, you know, the hip-hop community is going against Western civilization. But then again, I mean, we should, by right, be the fucking one group of people that they should just say, you know what, yeah, we need to leave these motherfucking people alone. And I think it's going to get to that point, especially with all of this shit going on with the immigrant situation and the wall being put up, and or even just to talk about the wall. When it gets back to black folks, it's like, well, you know what? We can't do anything to them. You know, like, they're not immigrants. We brought them here. Can't really do anything to them. They're the fucking lost tribe. But every other race does assimilate like that. Like that shit on, what's that guy's channel? Straight Shooter's channel. You know, they talk a lot about the people who name their babies Laquita, Lakeisha, Takesha, LaQuinda, and it has a lot to do with the culture. Because I also mentioned to him that if you are even an Asian woman and you live in an environment and your first few boyfriends were black men, and then, you know, your fourth boyfriend was a Cambodian guy, but he grew up in the hood too, listening to Tupac and stuff, him and his brothers, she decides to name the baby LaKendra, then that's what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are cases where other races have done that because they have grown up in an urban environment. You know? But then you have like a lot of, like, I know some Ghanaian people, their children have an African name, but their American name is like Michael and Jessica and shit like that. So, I mean, the assimilation is there. I don't want to make this video too long, though, but I just wanted to say a few things on that. I just really had to say some things and get that off of my chest. There's a few other things that I think I have forgotten. I didn't write none of this shit down. But, yeah, man, I don't like those guys going off like that. You know, repping. I guess it's CNN, so you get what you ask for. I just want to, you know, just make sure a lot of people understand at least the basis of this shit. Because if you go to places like Dearborn, Michigan, it's an Iraqi community, Iraq-American community. You know, Asians have Chinatowns built everywhere. You know, there are Italian communities in Brooklyn. So, I'm sick of the bullshit with black people. I mean, we have communities, but they're torn, and there's other ways to get that shit back up. But the only motherfuckers who are listening to this is the people who know. They know, they have an idea of what needs to go on. And it's almost like preaching to the choir. So if you guys are listening, man, I hope you guys is active with this shit. So, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. But remember, the video is at the bottom on the description if you want to see the video of this bullshit ass argument. And then also I have the conversation after this video as well. You know how I do with the slides and shit, man. So you guys have a great day. Stay warm if you're on the East Coast in the Midwest. Sam Sim. Peace.
Let's bring in Republican Congressman Steve King of Iowa. Congressman, always a pleasure to have you on the show. You have your own comments to explain this morning. You tweeted support of Mr. Wilders, who's running for Prime Minister in the Netherlands, and you wrote that Wilders understands that culture and demographics are our destiny. We cannot restore our civilization with somebody else's babies. This is being condemned by many regions of American politics and citizenry. What did you mean?
Well, of course, I meant exactly what I said, as it always is the case, Chris. And to expand on that a little further, I've been to Europe and I've spoken on this issue, and I've said the same thing as far as 10 years ago to the German people and to any population of people that is a declining population that isn't willing to have enough babies to reproduce themselves. And I've said to them, you cannot rebuild your civilization with somebody else's babies. You've got to keep your birth rate up, and that you need to teach your children your values, and in doing so, then you can grow your population and you can strengthen your culture, you can strengthen your way of life. And that's not happening in any of the Western European countries. France comes the closest to having a birth rate that's a replacement rate, but it's a clear message that we need to get our birth rates up, or Europe will be entirely transformed within a half a century or a little more. And Geert Wilders knows that, and that's part of his campaign and part of his agenda.
Right, but if you want to apply that kind of thinking to America, it seems like a complete contradiction of what we're all about. I mean, this is the melting pot. We are known by those countries that you just mentioned as the bastion of diversity. It is an unqualified strength for us, and it sounds like you're trying to kind of white cleanse our population and saying somebody else's babies. I think that means me, Congressman. I'm only second generation in this country. Who's somebody else's babies?
Chris, we're a country here that, if you take a picture of what America looks like, you can do it in a football stadium or a basketball court, and you see all kinds of different Americans there. We're pretty proud of the different looking Americans that are still Americans. And there's an American culture, an American civilization. It's raised within these children in these American homes. And that's one of the reasons why we require that the President of the United States be raised with an American experience. But we've also aborted nearly 60 million babies in this country since 1973. And there's been this effort that we're going to have to replace that void with somebody else's babies. And that's that push to bring in much illegal immigration into America, living in enclaves, refusing to assimilate into the American culture and civilization. Some embrace it, yes, but many are 2 and 3 generations living in enclaves that are pushing back now and resisting against the assimilation. It's far worse in Europe than it is today here in the United States. But I want us to be looking at that, promoting the birth rate in America, restoring the rule of law, putting an end to illegal immigration, and recognizing that we need to be a country that's pulled together on similar values. That makes us strong.
That's the exact point. I mean, because it seemed like you were doing the opposite. Like you were trying to say someone else's babies means you're either white or you're not right. And as you know, that is anathema to what America's all about. Can we get agreement on that?
Well, here's actually, if you go down the road a few generations or maybe centuries with the intermarriage, I'd like to see an America that's just so homogenous that we look a lot the same from that perspective. I think there's been far too much focus on race, especially in the last 8 years, and I want to see that put behind us, and I want to be as bonded together. I gave a speech on this on Saturday, and half the liberals got up and left the room when I talked about
because when you suggest to anybody, but when
they're looking for hatred is the point, Chris.
But hold on a second, Congressman. If you suggest that somebody else's babies shouldn't be welcome in a country, you seem inherently divisive. That's why I keep asking you, what was your intention with this? And you keep to seem doubling down on it. I mean, you said America's got lots of different faces, that's fine, but you keep making this point that this country needs to be about white people raising their birth rate and not bringing in other people. That's exactly what America is not.
But Chris, I never have made that point. I've never said that. I've been characterized as saying that. I've had the blogs out there say I said that, but I tell them, go back and watch the tape, listen to it, just listen to the language. Our language is precise. That's not out there. But I did defend Western civilization that started this last summer at the Republican National Convention. And when I said Western civilization, that launched people that are opposed to Western civilization. That's a big problem. If we have an element of Americans here, and that's a big element, that reject Western civilization, then what have we? This is an effort on the left, I think, to break down the American civilization, the American culture, and turn it into something entirely different. I'm a champion for Western civilization, and yes, our English language is a big part of it. It's a carrier of freedom.
Right.
Wherever the English language is going globally, freedom went with it. And science, technology has always lifted up the standard of living on average of everybody on the planet. So I want more of that, not less. And there are civilizations that produce very little, if any. This Western civilization still is a superior civilization, and we want to share it with everybody.
All right, you're entitled to your opinion about all these things, obviously. I just want to go back at this one more time, just because it's that important. A Muslim American, an Italian American, a Christian American, a Jewish American, you do realize that they are all equal, right? They are all the same thing. We don't need babies from one of those groups more than we need them from other groups. Do you agree with that?
Well, I would say that it
Why do you pause on a question like that, Congressman? What do you mean? It doesn't depend on any definition.
Because
you're either an American or you're not.
Objective answer, Chris.
Yeah, but either a Muslim American, an Italian American, an Irish, Scotch, German American, which is what your roots are, either those are all equal things, or they are not. What is your answer?
They contribute differently to our culture and civilization. There are moderate Muslims that are equal to, in all these categories.
I said a Muslim American. People who have lived here, who are assimilated.
Families.
Yeah, but there are a lot of people teaching hatred in their families who are white, who are Irish, who are Italian, who are Muslim. A lot of people preach hate. There's hate in a lot of different groups. And I get that you have Muslim extremism, that there's a concern in this country about it. But I asked you something else. These people are either all equal or they are not, in your view. A Muslim American, an Italian American, German American, like you and your blood, your roots, they are either all equal or they are not, in your mind. What is the answer?
I'd say they're all created in the image of God, and they're equal in His eyes. And if they're citizens of the United States, they're equal in the eyes of the law. Individuals will contribute differently, not equally to this civilization and society, and certain groups of people will do more from a productive side than other groups of people will. That's just a statistical fact. And so,
but it's not as a function of race, it's as a function of opportunity and education. You're not more likely than a Muslim American to contribute to American society. It's about your education and your opportunity, not what your blood is.
Chris?
Yes.
Chris, it's the culture. It's the culture, not the blood. And if you could go anywhere in the world and adopt these little babies and put them into households that were already assimilated into America, those babies will grow up as American as any other baby, with as much patriotism and as much love of country as any other baby. It's not about race. It's never been about race. And in fact, the struggles across this planet, we describe them as race. They're not race. They're culture-based. It's the clash of cultures, not the race.
All right, Steve.
And sometimes that race is used as an identifier.
Steve King, it's important. I wanted to clarify it. Thank you for coming on the show to do so. America is known for one thing, diversity as strength. Appreciate you being here. All right?